And welcome everyone to a new episode of Adventures in Reality. And today I have the infamous, the intrepid Vinny Eastwood. Welcome to the show, Vinny Eastwood. How you doing today?
Well, somewhat fabulous is my standard response, as I usually say, bro.
Somewhat
Uh,
fabulous and standard reproach. There we go.
yeah, just in a general kind of way.
In a general kind of way. Just a week ago, I was on your show, and we had an outstanding show. I want to thank you for that. And now you're coming on to my show, and I'm going to interview the Vinny Eastwood. So for people that don't know Vinny Eastwood, let's get the 5-minute T-ball version of who Vinny Eastwood was. It is.
Okay, who I was. Young, naive person. A flatmate introduced me to Bill Hicks and marijuana on the same day, and then he introduced me to Michael Rupert's From the Wilderness, The Truth and Lies of 9/11 presentation, and didn't think that much of it. And then about 6 months later, I got busted for selling weed. I got what did I get? I was going to go to jail for up to 8 years for having 13 grams of weed.
Wow.
And my mum flew down, put up the credit card, 10 grand, basically bankrupted herself just to make sure that I didn't go to jail. And I got 300 hours community service for 13 grams of cannabis. The guy in front of me was up for assault, sexual assault, and resisting arrest and growing 5 cannabis plants. He got 150 hours community service. And that was his second offence. Mine was my first. And I wasn't allowed diversion or anything. You're allowed to kind of get off scot-free if it's not like an indictable evil charge like dealing. So yeah, that kind of destroyed my entire life. Had no friends, had no money. Was kind of like the living dead, more or less. Yeah, kind of destroyed me. But it's like Tyler Durden says in Fight Club, it's only after you lost everything that you're free to do anything. So I went back to university about a year later after working on the vineyards for a year and bit, and realized after I wrote an essay about how bad television was, using all these reference notes and everything from all of these authors and things of this nature who've been studying the topic of television, its effect on the human mind and stuff like that for the last, 60, 70 years. My opinions of it was that TV was bad and it mind controls people and it can be used to facilitate propaganda in a network kind of sense, and that it can actually direct and destroy culture more or less, and more to the point, destroy people's memory by showing them 30-second news pieces and then jumping to the next. Like, that was my assumption going in. Then I started to do all the resource and reading material, which is the first time I've ever done this, by the way. I've never done research or reading material in my life in terms of university or high school. I just couldn't be bothered, I just sort of like fly by the seat of my pants my whole life and get C passes. And so this one I do. And I don't make the best essay of my life, right? And of course, they fail me. They give me a D. And I got really effed off about that and decided, university is obviously not for me. Because if you're thinking and what you're thinking is actually correct, according to lots and lots of research material, and they just don't like what you're saying and give you a failing mark, I thought I'm going to get out of here. So I thought maybe working and making a hell of a lot of money was a good idea. So I became a telemarketer, a really, really good one. I had a 50% strike rate. All right, so that means for every 2 people that picked up that phone, I would be able to sell to one of them. The average was 1 in 18 for the floor, the people that I was working with. So they promoted me, and they promoted me to a job that was more sales, which I didn't want. And so I got bored and wrote a 7-page essay about what was wrong with the company, their training programs, everything. And so they give us a big meeting with the bigwigs, and they say, after reading through page 1 and page 2 of this 7-page document, yep, thank you very much. The meeting's over, and they do absolutely nothing of any kind, and just fire me and ask me to leave and give me what was it? A little over 3 grand after tax, 6 weeks pay. They just say, leave in 5 minutes. We'll give you 6 weeks pay. I was just like, wow, I haven't had a summer holiday in a long time. Sweet, done. And that's what I did. And I think my money ran out pretty quickly on, got another job for another scumbag who screwed me around, and another job for another scumbag who screwed me round, but he didn't screw me around in the money department. On the other hand, he paid me very well, and my last paycheck was $4,000 cash and $11,900 worth of Westfield shopping vouchers. It's a mall chain, kind of thing. When you go to the mall and they got certain brandings on the malls and all that sort of thing, so you got all shops full of it. Like nearly $12,000 that I can buy anything in a mall with for as long as I want. Excellent. And that money ran out pretty quickly. Got really depressed. Went to a doctor and said, I'm really depressed because I don't have any money. And he says, well, that's all the proof and scientific evidence I need. Here's a little piece of paper that you can go to the unemployment office and say, hey, I've got depression. It's a sickness benefit. Give me money. And instantly, as soon as the government started giving me money for feeling bad about not having any money, my depression went away. And I spent the rest of the time on a year of the sickness benefit. I think the government was giving me about $200 a week. Which was just enough to cover my half of the rent, and my wife was really taking care of me at the time. I went out with my shopping vouchers, got myself a Mac and a camera and a tripod, and I started filming public meetings, started filming protests, and doing a little bit of dance party work on the side there, filming those and getting $50 or $100 for the night or whatever. Just to get a little bit of extra pocket money. And
so
I think
what made you want to get the microphone and the camera that ultimately led you into the crowds?
Alex Jones, Luke Rudkowski, and Charlie Veach, more or less.
Mentors or just radio personality?
I never met them before. Still, never talked to them before. I just saw what they were doing, and I realized what was really going on in society. And it sort of made a hell of a lot of sense to me, a hell of a lot more sense than working a slave job, hating myself, and needing to get high every day just so I could deal with the fact that I was a slave, and I really didn't want it. I was going through this massive wake-up depression phase. I was so angry with everybody, yelling and screaming at family members, like without warning and stuff like that. I was really messed up, and I think. Today I still am to a degree. I don't know, am I handling it better or am I just concealing it better? I haven't figured that out yet. But when I started doing all of this, the first thing I noticed was that when you go to a protest, what do you hear at protests? You hear chants, right? Something, 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 blah, blah, blah. Something, 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 blah, blah, blah. You never get any information. And that's the only thing that you ever really see on the news, that or a 5-10 second soundbite of a protester saying one statement. Right. And when I'm interviewing them, I found out that there's a hell of a lot more detail, not just to the protest, but to everything that these people are talking about. You sit there and you're listening to an activist who spent the last, say 10, 15 years researching topics, materials, engaging in political activism, sending official Information Act requests to the government. These are people with intense knowledge of the subject matter. They can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And as a result, I started to gain a geometric amount of knowledge about how my country really works, much more than anybody else in this country. I'm not saying I know more than everybody in this country, but in terms of the range of knowledge and the amount of people that I've interviewed, the amount of activists, I probably do have familiarity, at least, with more subject matters of scumbaggery that is going on in this country and around the world than probably almost anyone else in New Zealand history. I've put more New Zealand activists and researchers, journalists, people who've had their kids stolen by the CPS equivalent here, that kind of thing, more than anybody else. I have now 15,000 YouTube subscribers. And the New Zealand Herald, which is the 4th largest website in New Zealand, mind you, the preeminent news service, mainstream media here, they have 10,000 YouTube subscribers. So, me, by myself, is more successful than the largest mainstream media entity in the country at getting YouTube subscribers.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, you understand why I have Vinny Eastwood on my show and why Vinny had me on his show. We are both similar in our concepts. We are all both dominating in our own markets. But above all else, Vinny's story is about stepping forward in his own sovereignty, and working with the protesters led you into radio. What made you want to do radio?
Well, basically, I'm a narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the sound of my own voice. I like seeing myself on video. So naturally, I wanted to put myself in the limelight. And what I discovered is that not only am I quite good doing that sort of thing, but I can also be quite entertaining, and I can help people because I've thought about stuff a lot, and some of the things that occur to me don't occur to other people. Not because they're stupid and I'm really smart or whatever. It's just that I'm weird and I think about things in different ways, and sometimes I can put things into perspective for others. That's why the show's kind of dubbed the lighter side of genocide, because in a world so full of chaos and madness, if you lose your sense of humor, you'll go friggin' nuts.
Exactly.
That was one of the most important realizations I've ever had out of anything. More important than realizing 9/11 was an inside job, more important than realizing that the Federal Reserve is a private banking cartel that basically rules the United States, more important than any element of research that I've currently come across is that very important element of knowing that you need your sense of humor in order to survive. Because there's no point having a whole bunch of knowledge that is correct if you can't deal with that knowledge. Right? It goes into like a one-step, two-step. Yeah. It goes into like a one-step, two-step, three-step program. So first step is just realizing that there's something wrong going on. Second step is learning how to deal with it. And then the third step is, boom, going out and actually making a difference on it. Right? And for everybody it's different. So because I have because I'm sort of like a natural entertainer, I naturally turned information broadcasting into a form of entertainment so that it can actually be fun. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And that's something that the network owner, Danny Romero from American Freedom Radio, which sadly the network's gone down because Danny was arrested on some kind of set-up drug charge. I don't know. The information's really, really sketchy, and I kind of miss the network to a large degree. The communication's just not there. And it collapsed, I think, maybe December of last year completely when we realized that there was no...
And Oracle did, too, at the same time.
Yeah. And so after that, I was like, I'd been with them 3 years, and I had at least half a dozen other radio networks offering me gigs, and I was just like, I don't want to be on any other radio network but American Freedom Radio at the time. Maybe I'm starting to think about it a little bit differently now, but what they did for me was they took a New Zealander and they gave him a 2-hour-a-day, 5-day-a-week radio show straight off the bat. I'd been co-hosting with Brent Johnson, the Voice of Freedom, for about 6 months on the network, doing local time. I think it was between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. That was our slot for the show. Oh my God, that was painful, man. But thank God there wasn't no video, so the vast majority of the time you would just kind of like roll out of bed, put on your pink fluffy dressing gown, and just sit down in front of the computer with a headset on and just go, yeah, welcome. This is the American Freedom Report. You're just kind of like half zombified or whatever, and that was fun. But I think the last time I spoke to Brent, he was screaming so loud at me in my ears that my wife, who was in the couch across the length of the apartment, could hear every word that he was saying. The reason why he was screaming at me that loud is because the network didn't like him, they liked me, cancelled our show, and gave it to me. All right, which would understandably make anybody upset because they no longer have a radio show, but Danny Romero actually gave us a new slot. He called up a competing radio net. This never happens in talk radio, by the way, folks. Mm-hmm. He called up a competing radio network and asked them to give us two a show slot. and eventually Brent just found out that they were giving me the show itself, and he decided to cancel our show on that other network, like totally without notice, just live on air. By the way, we're now canceling the show, and I'm very disturbed about it, and all of this kind of thing. It's like, far out, man. I was really admiring of this guy up until that point, when he kind of come along and hamstring me, like at the start of my radio career. That's when I realized that not everybody in this radio business is a very well-adjusted person. All right. If anything, the well-adjusted truthers are quite the rare ones. Specifically, the well-adjusted truthers who are actually doing something about the New World Order. I mean, name me a veteran that's had to kill children or been ordered to do and commit atrocities or something of that nature with severe post-traumatic stress. Who's totally well-adjusted and is easy to get along with and doesn't have any personal issues or problems. They don't frickin' exist, right? To a large extent. I've never met one. I've met plenty of people who are sort of like functioning traumatized people, but at the end of the day, they're not totally balanced in and of themselves or anything else. That's what's problematic about it. I was really concerned that there wasn't anybody out there. In fact, here's something. Here's a good way to encapsulate the question for you. I make jokes about really serious stuff, right? And one of my listeners came with me to a protest one time, and on the drive back from it, he asked me, "Vinny, how come you make jokes about stuff? How come you make fun of it? How come you're not very serious?" And I said to him, "Can you name me a single other talk radio show in the truth movement that sits there, has fun, and makes jokes and has a good laugh while still talking about all of this really serious stuff?" He's like, I couldn't name one. And I said, so what you're really asking me is, Vinny, how come you're not trying to be like everybody else? And I think that has its own pretty obvious question, because I'm not everybody else, am I?
No.
You can go your own way and make it. As long as, I mean, there's two objectives to it. It's not to wake people up. There's plenty of people out there who have devoted their lives to waking people up and talking to brainwashed slaves and beating their heads against a brick wall. You know, they're welcome to it. Go for your life. I'm not here to wake people up at all, whatsoever. If you've already figured out that there's a bunch of ruthless, criminal, sociopathic scumbaggery that are running the planet, and you need to be able to deal with that information, that's what I'm here for. I'm not here to wake you up. I'm here to make sure you don't go back to sleep because you're traumatized so much by these things that you know. That's kind of like my function in the truth movement at this point. I'm not sure 100% how successful I am, however, I do know that I've had so many guests tell me it's been the best interview ever, or I've never had this much fun on an interview, or Vinny, you've asked a really good question there, or Vinny, you've totally hit the nail on the head there. You know, this is the commonplace thing. And it's because of one person that the show's really developed into that format other than me, and that's Danny Romero from American Freedom Radio. When I first came on, he told me there's only one rule on this network: have fun. If you're having fun, the audience is having fun too. And we've just basically gone from there, you know. Have fun, ladies and gentlemen. After all, you're only being exterminated.
That's right, the lighter side of genocide.
You know, I mean, what's the alternative, really? I mean, because I've been there, I've done that, I've done the serious thing, I've done the yelling, I've done the screaming, I've done the huge quantities of researching and all of that junk. I've done it ad infinitum. It's no longer fun, man. It seriously is. It's totally depressing.
I've reached the point where I've asked all my questions, got all my answers, and trying to maintain an audience that stays awake and doesn't go to sleep, and the new audience that's constantly coming forward and finding the material and trying to understand what 2 years or a year's worth of material means in weeks or days. You find all sorts of people out there in different areas. And the other day when we were doing your show, we touched on the power of laughter. And it's so important that people learn that laughter can truly alchemize some of the most densest of energies. Like Agenda 21. It's such a dense subject that leads into so many other fear-porn topics that just bringing it up, you can get truthers to cringe or squeal. And I have been trying to introduce humor into Agenda 21 and call it Agenda 420 because only the stoners are going to sit there and watch it happen. Or are people going to stop it? Or any of these other ones, cloning. There's got to be a point where we, these human beings who realize that we have some incredibly dense subject matter out there, and laughter is the built-in tool you have to get rid of this energy that's not processable. Like the other day on the show where you're saying you were working with the people that are getting their kids stolen from CPS week after week, hour after hour, until it was just so much that you mentally couldn't process it anymore and couldn't even listen to the interviews to edit them.
Yeah, it was like a full 2-month block of not doing any shows. I was sitting there playing video games, watching movies, literally trying to distract myself from the reality of what I was hearing from my guests, and this is the first time that's happened to me since becoming a radio show host. Normally you just take it all on your chin, take it on the fly. Every now and again you take a wee bit of a holiday, but it's never like I can't frickin' do my work because I'm feeling so low. It was actually after one woman came into it. She was the one that just put the cherry on the top. We married into the local New Zealand Illuminati family, and you know what happens with elite families. They've always got these commendations from wonderful organizations, like medals from the Queen, etc. And then it turns out that they're hardcore pedophiles that have a holiday home on the coast called the Candy Cottage that has got soundproof windows and walls, and that they were taking her daughter there, like they were her daughter's grandparents, that kind of thing, and that her husband was also like badly traumatized, MK Ultra style, like this kind of thing, and she was trying to prevent her child from getting raped, so she allowed her husband to rape her instead of her child, and that kind of thing. And just to hear that for a few seconds, as I've explained it, is like pretty gross. It makes you feel sick in your stomach, doesn't it? Okay? Yep. Imagine for a moment that woman is at your house for 6 hours, and for 6 hours it doesn't stop. It's constant, because for the first time in her life she's got somebody who's not only willing to listen but won't call her crazy, because I know that what she's telling me is par for the course. It doesn't change the fact that just listening to that was so utterly painful that I couldn't work for 2 months afterwards. Mm-hmm. You get it?
I do.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about this yesterday. Sorry. My wife told me the other day she's only just really going through her like full on wake up, like she's always been aware sort of thing, but she hasn't done that whole man I'm now addicted to documentaries and learning stuff kind of phase. She's only just started to get into that, and she says to me, Vinny, knowing all this stuff gives you post-traumatic stress. I was like, yeah, absolutely. Reality is not a nice, fluffy thing, ladies and gentlemen. Reality sucks. Why do you think drugs are so prevalent? Because you need to escape from that stuff. Why do you think people love comedy? Because they need to escape from it. Why do you think so many video games and movies and distractions are absolutely everywhere? It's to distract you from reality, okay? But it's not distracting you from a reality in a healthy way that's incorporating reality and making you actually deal with it, emotionally process it properly, etc. It's helping you deal with reality by completely ignoring it for as long as humanly possible so that you don't actually feel it.
And then after ignoring it for so long, it becomes the river in Egypt. The proverbial denial's the river in Egypt, until it becomes a way that you accept the facade reality. And I teach about the facade reality and the spiritual contracts we have. And then when you add the layers of knowingness that Vinny is talking about, or the layers of knowingness that I'm exposed to, seeing everything that's in this world, it can be very depressing. working with haunted children. I get that all the time. In any given day or any given month, there's 6 or 7 or 8 emails waiting for me for children that are haunted with stuff flying off the walls, or people that are 5 days from death, and they get a phone number to call me. And I do have to make a choice each day: 6 hours of talking, 8 hours of talking. And people don't really get that, how many people want to communicate to you or just have a conversation on Skype. And I have to send messages back that I'm sorry, I just can't sit and have a conversation with you. In any given day, there's 25, 35, 45, or 50 plus people who want a conversation with me. And there's no such thing as a 5-minute conversation with a person like me or a person like you.
No, there really isn't. And that's the thing. I had a person commenting on a Facebook status of mine just the other day, something about a politician that just got convicted for corruption in New Zealand, a very high-level politician who's like the leader of the coalition party, like total scumbag. I've known him for years and years, and I hate him, absolutely hate him, because he's such a scumbag, right? I mean, in every single way, in every single day, he practices the art of scumbaggery, okay? Sun Tzu practiced the art of war. This guy practiced the art of scumbaggery. It was just unbelievable. And people love him. Gets away with it all the time. And then my friends start prosecuting him privately. It's a great thing in New Zealand, bro. If you've got a scumbag and the law won't touch him because he's a Freemason and all the judges are Freemasons and all the judges are related by first cousin at least in this country, more or less, you try getting an independent investigation without a private prosecution, it just doesn't happen, right? So they got a conviction just the other day. I was like, yeah, boy! And what this listener did when commenting on the Facebook status is that, John Banks was trying to ban these legal highs, right? I don't know, you guys don't know about the legal highs debate, but it's been big here in New Zealand because we have this dude named Matt Bowden who came up with all these chemical compounds to synthesize the effects of ecstasy, to synthesize the effects of cannabis, and was starting to roll these products out. And then, instead of people going, oh my God, this is a good alternative that's actually slightly safer than ecstasy, and here's one that the shift workers can use, it's an alternative to cannabis that doesn't get piss tested for, they say, well, this is really bad because nobody's died. A few people have gone to hospital because they took 16 pills when it says on the packet you're only supposed to take 1, 2 tops. And I don't know, it's kind of like Bill Hicks said, a man jumped off a skyscraper on acid, thought he could fly. Well, why didn't you take off from the ground, asshole?
Exactly. Why didn't you take off from the ground?
You think you can fly, dumbass? It's like, oh, we lost another moron,
Natural selection.
Yeah, exactly. And so what they do is they just try to ban this. And so that's what this woman was sort of saying. Well, John Banks, despite the fact that he's now a convicted criminal fraudster in Parliament, and not to mention the government tried to keep him in even after the conviction was announced, saying he's a good man and he would never do any of this. They just convicted him with evidence. You're undermining the entire justice system, Parliament, by sticking up for a convicted criminal, fraudster, scumbag with huge amounts of power and connections who has done this kind of stuff time and time again. Right? So you feel the emotional kind of like anger energy that sort of arises there. And what this listener was saying was something along those lines. He was trying to ban those legal highs, so he can't be all that bad sort of thing, or at least that was the impression that I got. And so I asked her, so just for clarification, are you sticking up for a convicted criminal fraudster? Or are you saying that he's going to be bumped off because he's now a threat to the system, sort of thing? She doesn't answer my questions. She replies back saying, oh, you probably don't remember me. I helped you at a chemtrail protest in Auckland, and so on and so forth, and blah, 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 blah. But I'm just a little old me, sort of like making it about my ego as opposed to just answering a simple question. And I realized something. It's impossible for me to recognize as many people that can recognize me. All right. So let's say, for example, how many X amount of people would, let's say, recognize you coming down the street? For most people, it'd be on average around about 1,000. That's the average social sphere for people. I currently have 3 million hits on YouTube and 10,000 hits a month to my website. Okay. I'm around about in the top 1 million websites in the world. And so when I go to a dance party to film, or a lot of my friends put those on, and I like to boogie, I like the nightlife. And I always have people come up to me, always, every single time. Oh my God, it's Vinny Eastwood, it's Mr. News. Now, do you think, for all of those millions of people who've seen me and could recognize me, do you think that I'm capable of recognizing 1 million people just as easy as those 1 million people are capable of recognizing me? No? Oh, that's right. Because I'm flooded with people all the time. It's not like I don't care about you if I don't remember your name or who you are. It's just that I've got so many people coming at me all the time that it's not physically possible for my human brain to remember who you are or what you've done for me. Okay? I'm sorry, but I'm not God. And it's nothing to, I mean, if I'm so egotistical, why would I say something like that?
Exactly. And in my career path, I've read well over 10,000 people, and I get people coming up to me 3 years later, months later, and asking me if I remember the reading. I'm like, no. I mean, there's 20,000, there's 1,000 people past you at that point, And there are times that I put together a list of the most important people that I've read, people that you would never guess that the lady down the street has particular talents that can change the world, yet she won't go out into the world because she was abused as a kid and has no trust for the world. And I run across these people all the time. And there's so many people out there with broken trust. And as radio hosts, we try to mend the broken trust so that communities can come together. One of the reasons, I wanted to be on your show and have you on my show is it's not just a cross-pollination of audience, it's the communities coming together, sharing information. If one person meets another person from a chat comment on Facebook or on this YouTube thread here, not only have we done exactly what we wanted to do, we changed the world this day, we've allowed other people to begin changing the world just by sharing our frequency of this message here that we are human beings like everyone else, and yes, we are in the truth movement. Our perspectives are a little different, but our ultimate goal is the same: truth, 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 instead of lies, 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 and more lies.
Especially if the truth is painful. And in fact, that's another thing. I'm a sucker for punishment, man. I like pain. I like suffering. I like trauma, and I try to load myself up with it whenever. In fact, it's funny. It reminds me. What happened? It was 2 years back, I think. It was around about February or March or something. I was getting plenty of donations in, and I was feeling really, really exhausted and kind of lazy, and I was buying myself and the wife fast food and takeaways nearly every day, and we both gained a shockingly large amount of weight just in a month kind of thing. We both gained like about 20, 30 pounds. And I was like, whoa, what am I doing? I'm living high on the hog on people's donations, saying that I'm some kind of good truth movement, honest, integrity-focused, radio show host and stuff like that. And all I'm doing is going out and blowing everybody's frickin' money that they're giving me on fast food and New World Order products. I need to be punished. All right. So I prayed. This is the only time that I actually ever pray is when I want something bad to happen to me, because I notice that when you pray and you want something good to happen to you, your prayers never get answered. But if you want something bad to happen to you, wham it, right there. So there, God, please fuck up my life. I've had it too easy for too long, and I need you to destroy this happy little circle of mine, and I want you to really, really mess things up for me. The very next day, my PayPal account, where all the regular donations and everything come in, all the income I was living off, got restricted by PayPal, and I wasn't able to do nothing. And I was like, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. It was almost like having to start again from scratch. And I haven't gotten back into that place where I've gotten so much donations coming in that I just sit back and laze around and be a pathetic frickin' scumbag, more or less, because I have a lot of moral obligation to do what I do. And the thing about moral obligation is that your own comfort and your own happiness and everything sometimes has to be put on a sideline, particularly if your entire lifestyle is determinant on other people's charity towards you. Nobody buys products off my website and that kind of thing. I haven't sold a DVD in like years, right? And it's all donations. People give me $5 a month. One guy gives me $100 a month. Sometimes I'll like get up in the morning and I'll be like, man, you know, when you kind of like move from your bed to your computer in the morning, and you kind of think about all the bills you got to pay that day, just check your email or whatever. It's like, man, I got my power bill, my internet bill, my rent, and I need a little bit of money to fix the car as well. It's like $500. I don't have $500. So go in, check the PayPal, and there's a $500 donation from one guy. Another time I was sitting at the desk and I just finished a show and I didn't have any food in the house. I wasn't even able to have breakfast before the show, and I didn't have money or food for after the show. I was sitting there like hungry, and I was like, man, I really feel like a meat pie. I really feel like a meat pie. All of a sudden, mate Dan at the door. He's like, Vinny, here's a pie. And I was like, whoa. You know? Another time I was sitting there and I really needed a sandwich. And all of a sudden, somebody, one of my listeners at the door, Vinny, here's a loaf of bread. I was like, whoa. and
that's social consciousness. I teach so much about social consciousness, and for you to share those stories is huge because it's showing you and the audience that's listening there, the social consciousness does know when you need things.
Yeah. And ever since I've been doing what's right in my life, I haven't been working for no scumbag corporations. In fact, I developed a made-up mental illness, just like all the other made-up mental illnesses, called employophobia, a fear of gainful employment. And ever since then, I haven't been employed by anybody, and I've only been, you know, self-employed, trying to help people get the word out and that kind of thing. So it's been great. And every single time when I need something, it turns up. Not because I manufactured it, but because I needed it. I really needed it. And because you're doing the right thing in the universe always makes sure to give you something that you need to continue. It never gives you what you want, only what you need. Like, I'll sit there this one time, like that $500 story I just told you. Another story was, man, I wish I really had $2,000 so I could be totally comfortable and get everything sorted well ahead of time, you know, pay my car registration out for 6 months or a year, or get this fixed, etc., or whatever. None of it was absolutely necessary, and when I called out for donations, I only got about $30, and I needed about $2,000. And another time when I needed to move house, and I needed about $3,000, and asked for it, I was given $4,000 in 48 hours. No, 72 hours, sorry. You know? It's really, really strange like that. And this is what's kind of replaced my view of karma, is that there's no such thing as a karma bank, right? Oh, you do good things and then you get rewards for it and stuff like that. It's not about some kind of mystical little roundabout universe way. It's actually quite literal. It's a community bank. If you do good things and are seen to do good things, then when you ask for help, others do turn up and help you. Not because they have to, but because they feel a moral obligation to do so. The very same moral obligation that makes me do the radio show and give all these activists a platform and a voice in the first frickin' place. It becomes a reciprocal relationship that is fulfilled by people, real people, with real lives, who work real hard in their slave jobs and give their money to me, right? And I'm intensely grateful for that, because I can't work It's not because I don't want to, it's because I can't. The last 2 times I tried to get a job because I was like real down on my luck and the radio show wasn't working out, a little bit earlier in my career. I had panic attacks. Even my best friend, Jono, he gave me a job going door-to-door sales for selling insulation to people during winter. It's such an easy job, you could just rake in the money doing that, earn thousands a week. And I had a panic attack the night before, and I called him up in the morning. I said, bro, I just can't. I can't take orders from people. I can't be in an employment situation. I can't be in front of people selling BS for some company that ain't going to make a difference against the New World Order. I can't do that anymore.
You've reached a point where you're not going back in the trenches.
Yeah. I mean,
that's huge. As a person, that's huge. I had to make that same choice early on in my career. When you're dealing with the trenches and you're dealing with haunted people or corrupted people who want to heal, and some who don't know how to heal and ultimately won't heal until they learn the mistakes that they made in their life, I get surrounded by that all day, every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And when I take 2 days or 4 days off, there's consciousness earthquakes in these people who are so addicted to be able to communicate to me, and that's very, very tough. I put together a website, and normally I don't work or function with the forums and the boards, but I decided grudgingly to use that on my website because I want leaders to step forward out of the forums and boards that I'm using. I'm not using it for a normal purpose. This summer there's a whole lot of things that are going to go on, and we are going to need people to step forward with a megaphone and go to your local community and do something. Run for your town mayor. Do something that changes the world at your local level. And that's what I'm going to be promoting with multiple subject matters coming up. There's going to be multiple scenarios with New Earth Nation, sovereignty community, putting together tribunals of international justice, working with the Horse Consciousness Network, as well as many, many other levels of material, because now is at a time where we put it all on the table, every single bit, no holds barred. This is the summer where we show so much truth that either A, you're going to regurgitate it and fall back asleep, or you're going to permanently stay awake.
Well, let's hope people decide to permanently stay awake. There, coffee helps, and if that doesn't work, there's always crack. I wanted to read something out. Look, you get it from all angles when you're in this kind of position, okay? When you're in the public eye, and I had this profound realization the other day. There's actually only one drawback I found, like one drawback that I don't like about being in this position. Everything else, I can either deal with it, it's fine, or I like it. And that's the abuse from people. All right, I'm not sure if you get this. You must do, because you talk about stuff that's real and like totally far out there. So you get emails all the time from people like insulting you and calling you names, blah 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 blah. And I got this one guy who goes by HH and always emails me from this don'treply@hush.com, which means it's an unreplyable email, an unblockable email, an unsmartboxable email, an unjunk mailable email. So they always come into my inbox. I can't stop them, and I can't reply to them to tell them to stop. But it's like this: Vinny, you are a prat, not funny either, and a totally insensitive and an egomaniac. What a tosser, right? And he uses 2 stars instead of the S's in the word tosser, as if it's a swear word. And then he goes on to say overbearing, overweight, self-important, asshole, attention seeker. But he spells asshole with the real S's in there, unlike bleating them out like he did for tosser. What? And he goes psychopathic in full capital letters, lack of self-awareness, attention span of a goldfish, and then in full capital letters, prima donna. Your show sucks, and you cut off and interrupt your guests far too often. Chemtrails and Fukushima, not funny. Lazy questions, lack of in-depth, well-thought-out follow-up questions, lots of room for improvement, with about 10 dots up, lots of room for improvement, dot, 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 dot. Just that many. Oh, wait, and here's a great example of what I just do. An ass who laughs at their own jokes is never funny, just irritating. Stick that in your ganja pipe and smoke it! Exclamation mark.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a treat to be able to hear Vinny talk like that, because I experienced so much of that same thing.
You probably get it way worse than I do, bro.
Oh my God! I can only begin the amount of things that you could possibly think that come into email. And there are people behind the email that they don't think. They really don't think. They've been raised on the internet. They've been raised on chat rooms, and they've been raised to have a dual personality when it comes to the internet. And both you and I experience that all the time. You got one person who by private message loves you, and yet everything on Facebook is hate, 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 hate. I see that all the time, so much that it's so ridiculous. But as a host, we don't attach to it. And when you get emails, even the ones you can't delete, it's just keep going. You just keep going, keep going. You got to get through the density. I got to the point where I have somebody else managing the email. Simply the volume is just way too much. What I'd like to do now is to switch over here and begin poking fun at the powers that be. Really putting the humor to the black and blue eyes at the top of the three-headed pyramid, because it's not a one-headed pyramid anymore. It's many heads with many thousands at top that have been battling each other for tens of thousands of years. So where do you want to poke fun at?
Oh, I just kind of like poke fun at stuff in a general kind of way. You can just really... I think one of my talents is I'm really good at summarizing things, and I'm really good at making really serious topics funny. So you can kind of like, and of course every time I say this kind of thing, like just in general kind of way, somebody will instantly come up with the one topic that I just can't find a joke to make about, or have you ever noticed that's happening? Every time you kind of get a little bit, it's, I've got these amazing abilities, and all of a sudden the very first person who opens their frickin' mouth just totally puts you in your place. Like, damn, I'm not that good.
Let's start with something easy, like Justin Bieber.
Well, Justin Bieber. Oh, that reminds me of something. Thomas Sheridan. Thomas Sheridan, an expert on psychopaths, right? He's a very cynical man. As you should be in this day and age. If you're not cynical by now, ladies and gentlemen, just grow up, harden up and grow up.
Learn to be cynical. That's advice. Learn to be cynical.
Yeah, exactly. My cynicism has taught me a lot more than my optimism ever could. Because my optimism is only correct about 10% of the time, whereas my cynicism is correct 90% of the time. Because a lot of the times that I'm thinking about something, it's usually about something else other than me, so I'm correct when I assume that scumbaggery or some kind of douchebaggery, etc., or in the case of setting people up on drug charges when they're going into Indonesia, boogie board baggery. But what I want to say about this Justin Bieber and what Thomas Sheridan said. Do you remember when Angelina Jolie got her boobs cut off to prevent herself from getting breast cancer? Well, Thomas Sheridan then put up a post, I'm going to get my ears amputated just in case Justin Bieber releases another album. Oh, brilliant. Oh my God, cynicism can be amusing, ladies and gentlemen, especially if it's correct, and accurate, and sort of like totally portrays exactly the madness that we're looking at that's put out as reality. Have you ever noticed that?
All right, for those out there that are not too well versed with some of Vinny's lingo, let's define scumbaggery.
All right, scumbaggery is the actions, motives, and portents of a scumbag. All right? And you'll notice that it is kind of like the core of everything. You'll notice that in any topic that you look into, you will find a nice, nougaty center of scumbaggery, producing all the stuff. All right? And this is what I've called the fractal scumbaggery theory, whereby just like the fractal universe, every part of the universe, whether it be a human brain cell or the entire universe itself, or a microbe to a giant organism like a planet, you see the exact same pattern repeating and getting bigger and bigger all the way up the scale, and the exact same pattern repeating and getting smaller and smaller all the way down the scale. Everything is a repetition of something else.
Scamanachi's repetitive pattern?
No, the it's the Scambaggery sequence.
I call it Scamanachi. It's like Fibonacci's repetitive sequence.
Oh, no, actually, I said to Santos Bonacci one time, I said, what do you call it when Santos Bonacci tells a lie? A Fibonacci.
That's good.
And so, fractal scumbaggery, you look into one instance of crime, lies, deception, general scumbaggery, and you'll notice that it starts to branch out and go off on all these other different highways of scumbaggery in every different direction. And then it doesn't matter which highway you go into or which rabbit hole per se, there is even more scumbaggery coming down in that thing, and it starts to explode in repeating patterns, and it turns into, you start to realize that everything's actually built upon layers of scumbaggery, you know, much like how the soil is built up by layers of shale and rock and sand and grass and trees and dead zombies, you know, that kind of thing, just for the fertilizer's sake. That's basically how the universe works, you know. Everything's centered by a nice little nougaty nugget of scumbaggery, and basically you only really have one thing that you can do about it, is expose it, you know. You're never going to be able to defeat them, at least in my opinion. There's never going to be some kind of like a Hitlerian final solution to scumbaggery. There's two things you can do about it, and this is goes back to what Thomas Sheridan was saying. He says psychopaths only fear two things: being exposed and worse psychopaths, right? Only two things that he reckons they fear, and I see this to be a very self-evident truth. Why they would fear a much worse psychopath? Well, because, like them, psychopaths don't play by no rules, you know? I mean, if I was upset with you, or something like that, if you stole my company or whatever, I'd expose you, you know, I'd put out some information about you and things of that nature, but I wouldn't kidnap and torture your kids in front of you in order to get my point across, would I?
Nope.
A really bad psychopath will, if they can get away with it. I found that's kind of the only thing that restricts functioning psychopaths, is what they can and can't get away with, more or less. And so I've elected to expose it rather than become a worse psychopath in every single way that I can. And
so where does the Vinny Eastwood show go from now?
I think I'm at a crossroads, actually. I have no current network. I'm totally self-published, so every day I'm getting new videos up, new radio shows up. Ultimately, what I want is to have a home. I really love to actually have a home of my own, you know, so I don't have to pay rent to some scumbag. If the roof's broken, I can fix it without getting permission or waiting for a landlord for 6 months to do it, and when they do, they show up with duct tape, as has just happened here when our sunroof broke, right before a cyclone hit, by the way, and then they duct taped it, and obviously it fell apart. I want to have like a base of operations, and because I'm kind of good at encapsulating things, I'm also really good at teaching people. So I was thinking about sort of like an activist media school. All right, so let's say your expertise is, I don't know, exposing corruption in the court or whatever. You're incredible at reading documents, great at encapsulating things, which makes you a great person to interview, right? Because that's the reason why I do all my interviews. I never have to do any work on any of the interviews. I just get a person recommended by a listener. I have no idea who they are or what we're going to talk about, and then they come on. And the reason why my listeners suggest these people is because they appear to know what they're talking about at great length, hence me not needing to do any study. They've done all the study. All I need to do is provide them the platform. Now, let's take that full circle. What if I could teach people to create their own platform so that they don't need me anymore?
Beautiful.
That is my business model. If you're going to create something, make sure that it can stand on its own merits, and make sure that people aren't dependent on you in order to keep doing said work. All right. Otherwise, the whole system just kind of falls apart when you die. I don't want to die, but I know that I will. Everybody dies. But when I leave this planet, what I want to hear is, in the afterlife, is a whole bunch of people who are influential in the world, who have saved countless human lives through exposing corruption and doing a service to the community, that one day they'll get up on a podium and say, there was this one time when I was really down on my luck, when I was really thinking about giving up on helping people. I just had enough. Everything had turned dark. I didn't see an out. And I was just going to bow out completely and just, never go online again. And then there's this guy, Vinny Eastwood, who talked to me, helped me to realize that my problems weren't that bad, helped me to realize that the moral obligation to help others is more than my personal desire to live a life free of pain and suffering. And he encouraged me and gave me a few skills to continue. And as a result, I've been able to serve humanity and save lives. The day after I had that realization, I don't have a radio on my car, so it's broken. So I have to think while I drive instead of listening to stuff. And that was one of the thoughts I came up with when I went to my mate's place. And the very next day I had Kevin Galilee, who's written a number of books on depopulation and the covert depopulation agenda, how they're putting sterilants and vaccines and stuff in the water and promoting contraception all over the place in order to keep the population down. He said a comment almost identical to the thing that I just said the day after, just having that realization and never even saying it on Facebook or anything. He didn't even know that I had that thought before he wrote me that message. And so I was like, that's interesting, because this is what I wanted to accomplish after I was already dead. And it appears that I've accomplished what I want to accomplish after I'm already dead while I'm still alive and only 29 years old. How many people get to have that realization in their life, even once? And more to the point, what do you do once you've already accomplished in life what you wish to accomplish after your death? And the answer is you've got to change. So I'm thinking in terms of the very near future, I'm going to be changing a few things. Number one, I do want to take up some of these networks offers. I don't want to go with any of them, but at the end of the day, it's going to be much easier to reach people, far easier for doing the editing and the processing, and in terms of credibility, having a network rather than just being by yourself, because there's a lot of people who want to listen live, and because I have only do my pre-recordings on Skype and everything, nobody can listen live, and so that cuts out the amount of audience that you can possibly have quite significantly on that front there. I want to change that. I want to make a documentary about our current Prime Minister, John Key, who is a former Federal Reserve banker in charge of derivatives for 2 years as a representative for Merrill Lynch, which was the Money Magazine said was the primary cause of the financial crisis in 2008, which was incidentally the same year he was elected for a blue political party promising hope and change. And then he got the country into more debt than it had ever been with all previous prime ministers combined. That sound familiar, America?
Very familiar.
It's the exact same plan everywhere you go. So I wanted to sort of do that, sort of what Alex Jones did with the Obama deception, except it'll be a hell of a lot more funny. And these are just pie in the sky ideas, because I've never made a full-length documentary before. I do full-length radio shows and interviews, but that's just one interview. That's one bit of footage, and then boom, it's all there for everybody to see. A documentary is much more involved, a hell of a lot more intense. I want to train people. I need assistants, and people who are regular and people who are reliable, because that's one thing I've learned about in this movement is it's actually extremely rare to find somebody in the movement who will do what they say they will do and is otherwise reliable. Right?
Exactly. I have found the same thing. Same thing.
Yeah.
Reliability, reliability. And some are looking out for their own market, their own network, their own pocket, their own boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is. But they're factions. It's like high school clique factions that they only work with certain people. And even then, those certain people that work with don't really get the full them. They get 30% or 50% of them. And that's just unfortunate because the industry doesn't work together in any way, shape, or form. And it should.
I don't know. I think actually keeping us divided in a lot of ways and going into our own specialized fields and our own little groups, etc., makes us much harder to disable as an entire movement.
Yeah, but it
Right.
makes it easier to disinfo the individual movements just by
That's true.
flooding the one till you can never find the truth in a stack of haystacks.
I totally get that point, and I completely agree. And just like everything that I agree with, I also hold a contradictory viewpoint
So do I.
simultaneously.
So do I, because you have
Uh,
to see both sides to understand the strategy at this point in this slice of time.
so here's where we are. We've currently got a divided truth movement. So it's like you put your hands together, sort of like interlock your fingers, and instead of putting your fingers down and making two fists join together as one indivisible, tightly locked unit that can't actually pull away from each other and is very powerful and has a center of strength, right? A core. You're only like this with your fingers apart, like an X shape, and as soon as you pull your hands apart, boom, they come apart instantly. That's kind of how the truth movement is right now. You see people meshing together in a very gentle way, in a very general kind of way, but you also don't see them combining forces with utter strength and the ability to follow people. Part of the reason for that is because of the propensity for disinfo agents, the propensity for the quote-unquote Illuminati to infiltrate movements that might be successful, etc. And as a result, I think actually us keeping divided for each other is also the reason why the truth movement's expanding in every direction so rapidly on so many different veins. Because as we all know, there's more than one path towards the truth.
True.
Isn't there?
So true. There's thousands of pathways, and they all lead to different truths that all lead to other truths that expose the whole truth.
I don't think there's just thousands. I think it's infinite. All right, there's infinite paths to the truth, infinite different combinations of things that you might experience in your life. I mean, when one person, my old friend Liam, who I'm no longer friends with because he owed me a lot of money, I didn't like him, but he introduced me to cannabis, Bill Hicks, and the 9/11 Truth and Lies in 9/11 documentary. I've just been thinking about him a lot this last week, and that was like back in 2004 that this happened. And as a result of him doing that one little bit of influence, he didn't actually really have to work a hell of a lot. What? You pass somebody a marijuana pipe? What? You show somebody a DVD? You know? What? You play somebody a clip? That's three very, very minor things. It doesn't take any effort. And I don't think he knew, and I certainly didn't know at the time, but I'd become integral to the cannabis movement in New Zealand. And in fact, I'm one of my listeners is paying for me to fly down to the capital on Thursday or Friday, sorry, to stay at a hotel where the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, as we all know it's called NORML, is having the biggest conference in the organization's history as far as I know, off the back of the Colorado legalization, all the positive news that's coming out of there, and the legal high bans that are happening here. We're actually at a nexus point where both the hemp industry, the banning of the legal highs industry, the medical marijuana industry, and the recreational marijuana industry are almost all simultaneously at the same point experiencing a revival in their ability. You know, and this is so important to me that I offered to go down and film all of this stuff for free. I never even tell people to charge them generally, but when you're activists, money's always a problem. Time is never a problem, right? You've got all the time in the world to do any of your stuff when you're an activist, but you never have enough money to do it. So all I needed was a plane ticket and a hotel room, and that was it. And boom, I got it. One of my listeners donated it to me. It wasn't even anybody from Normal doing it for me. And it's just because we all believe in each other. We believe in the righteousness of our cause. And there's something very right about helping people who need your help. There's something very wrong about voting for people who don't need your help and won't help you back anyway.
Exactly. And by you adding yourself to that little cause, all of your audience, and those are 1 degree of separation of your audience, are going to know that you're putting forward and going, hey, you guys want to smoke weed in New Zealand, you got to come to this meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So something I'd like to bring up to you. Recently, I've done a lot of interviews with a tremendous amount of the law and sovereignty community, and I've done a tremendous amount of shows in my own right about law and sovereignty, inherent equity, how the courts are corporate courts, what the bonds are, what your foot stamp on your live birth certificate runs. And this last Saturday, I did a webinar with New Earth Nation. And after the webinar, I was asked to be a part of their international tribunal on justice about what's going on in the truther industry, what's going on at all different levels. And they invited me to be part of this international tribunal so we can begin teaching protesters how to be arrested in a sovereign state, in which that they can actually begin charging judges with fraud. So as a protester, how would you feel of being trained in literally that these costume people who are, are full and well arrest you in their own illegal manners, and when you step in front of a judge, that you've been trained in front of multiple mock courts of how to essentially take that judge's QSIP bond or his oath and bond and turn it against him and make them the beneficiary of the jail time?
Honestly, it's not my part to play in the movement to do that. I'll interview the people who are doing that, and so that anybody who's watching that show can also get the training that they need. We're all here to fulfill our roles. Mine's to give the platform for people who are putting out that kind of information so that more and more people hear it. So that it gives.
Put the platform out there.
Yeah, put the platform out there so that all the listeners have the option if they want to step forward, if they want to do that. Everybody contributes to this fight in their own way. Having sovereignty is twofold. Number one, it's about personal power, and number two, it's about providing an example of what personal power looks like to other people who are completely disempowered and shall we say, disillusioned with the system. Mm-hmm. Whereas being a radio show host, there's no personal power in it per se. I can't suddenly say to a cop, "I'm a radio show host, don't arrest me," because they're thugs, they're criminals. They don't care. Right. They also don't care about you saying, "Oh, I've got my claim of right with a document with your blood on it and your fingerprints." They don't care. They still lock you in jail. They still kick you in the head, and they still torture you. And they still shut down your businesses and all of this kind of stuff. And that's the problem with the sovereignty movement is that I've got
There's no enforcement. Right, and that's where actually this stems from. With the use of an inherent court of equity, you have injunctive powers. And once you get your first injunctive power on anything that's in the political structure at the cabinet level, the local sheriffs that are functioning within any of the sovereignty movement actually have an enforcement arm. And this is what's been critically missing from many of the sovereignty movements, and they all know it. There's no enforcement that the local sheriff departments, including that in Australia and New Zealand, still have the power to change the government. Not all of them have become corporate police officers. Many of them still have state oaths and state bonds. And that's critical for this movement to take off, is once they see that there's multiple injunctive orders, then you'll have sheriffs who begin to collect other sheriffs and say, well, there's 1,000 injunctive orders from multiple inherent courts of equity. We have legal jurisdiction to begin looking at what the evidence is in the inherent court of equity that says XXX about political structure, XXX about the military-industrial complex, XXX about bonds and passports and derivatives. You can present the entire truth in the inherent court of equity, which is the entire system that we live in, and you can lay out all the truth, which is the different from a non-inherent court of equity or in a regular court where you'll never be able to put into open testimony top-secret documents. You'll never be able to put into the testimony of chemtrail peoples who are under Non-Disclosure Act. In an inherent court of equity, all of that's on the table. They cannot stop you from presenting your case. And that's always been the key in any court that you try to battle the powers that be, or the powers that are, or the powers that are still here, is because literally you're not allowed to put it in the court of record.
Well, see, my argument is not the court side of things, because the sovereignty movement has proven time and time again through a number of different methodologies that they can beat the state in court time and again. The problem is they can't prevent themselves from getting arrested, tortured, and put in solitary confinement for months before they get to even see a courtroom without charges being laid. All right, they can't prevent.
That's true, because they're battling it differently. Sure, go ahead.
This is the reason why I'm not personally into the sovereign movement and not personally researching into all of that. What I'm personally trying to do is prevent myself from getting arrested and not breaking any of any of these BS laws. So that way, I don't have to spend time and gain post-traumatic stress, and I can continue working every single day to put out stories and things of that nature. You know, this is my job. Other people want to, if the moral obligation is strong enough, or if you're as much of a victim of the system as a lot of these sovereignty people are, then go for your life. That is what motivates you. That is how you can help. That is how you express your individuality, your particular contribution to the global truth movement. I have no argument with that whatsoever, and I'll encourage you every step in the way. It's just not something that I'm going to do. Just like a whole lot of people in the sovereignty movement ain't going to start radio shows, right?
Believe it or not, a lot of them have radio shows already.
A lot of them have.
The talk show on Skype, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of them have, but there's a hell of a lot more sovereignty people out there than there are sovereignty radio shows, I'd say.
You're right, because they're patriot for profits. There's a big difference. You pay $30,000 to get into their little education class. I know what it's about. I've interviewed the top 20 law ninjas. What I was actually referring to is there's many ways at being a protester. One way is educating the local police, and that's where the law and sovereignty position is to educate the judges as well as the police officers without any type of confrontation. I wasn't indicating to do confrontation. When you're properly trained, you can learn how to say nothing to a court. In so many of the sovereignty cases, you have a guy screaming at the judge. That is not the way to do it. You have these people not saying their name. Again, it is not the way to do it. There are specific words that you can say when you're in front of a specific type of flag that can get your case immediately dismissed. That causes no harm and no foul. And when you're giving the tools and techniques to the people who are properly trained in a mock court of how to speak properly to the police officer, how to properly speak to a constable, as well as the judge and the deputies, you are trained, and so that you can go in and out. So as a protester, if there's an inevitability of you getting arrested, or if you're simply saying, no, I'm not going to get arrested, here are the skills and technique you can use for your local area. And we're going to be putting together documents so people can understand and begin educating.
Yeah. Well, the next time I get pulled up by a cop or something, they ask me for ID or they ask me what my name is, I say, my name is Slave. And they go, okay, Mr. Slave. No, not Mr. Slave, because that implies I have some kind of respect. You want to call me Slave, or if you want to be technical and use my full name, it is Slave Scum. And you go, okay, Slave Scum. Then I went, just make a mockery of it. I'm just joking, by the way. I'm not really going to do that because that's just dangerous. They'll just. But here's what I do with cops. It's the same thing that I do with my listening audience. I tell them some stuff that blows their freaking minds, make them laugh, and make them actually enjoy my company.
Perfect.
In so doing, they don't like the idea of trying to bust me for something because they're too busy laughing and actually enjoying the interesting conversation that I'm putting out with them. Remember how I told you about how my listener asked me that question, Vinny, how come you don't take this stuff seriously or whatever? That same listener is the listener who's buying me the tickets to go to the normal conference, and the same listener who helped me out at this one particular protest, manning the camera on the tripod while I was out in the middle, protesting alone, more or less, in terms of being the only voice there. But cops came up to me. And I'd only been protesting for 10 minutes before the cops arrived. 10 minutes of protesting. That's all you can get in. And then the cop arrived, and we had a conversation with the cop for 20 minutes. I can guarantee you, if I'd protested for half an hour, that video would have gotten a couple of hundred hits, maybe 1,000 tops. But because a cop entered into the situation and people got to see me having a fun, friendly, professional-sounding conversation with a police enforcement officer, not a the video is now nearly up to 10,000 hits. Okay? You can use these enforcement officers as a way to draw an audience. Okay? Why do you think the Love Police was so damn popular? It wasn't because Charlie Veitch was a really nice guy who was totally not egotistical and a really good example to follow, etc. It wasn't because of that. It was because people love to see interaction with cops that ain't negative.
Exactly.
Right? They like to see police as human beings. That's how they wish the cops all were. The problem is they're not. A lot of them are freaking inhuman. You know? They're just bad people. They're liars. They're gangsters. They're criminals. More or less. I mean, how do you think we have an entire governmental structure that's based upon lies and criminality if you don't have trained liars and criminals working to enforce those laws?
That are generations old.
Exactly. So, in my case, preventing myself getting arrested is high priority because the other 2 times that I've been arrested, I got massive panic attacks. I don't like having the panic attacks. I've had about maybe, I don't know, half a dozen in my life or something like that. The very first one was when I got arrested the first time and I didn't even know what was happening. All of a sudden I couldn't breathe and my legs wouldn't work or something like that, and I was like collapsing, and it was really, really freaking traumatic. And that all comes from getting arrested, man. Like they literally destroy your life, all right, and they actually take pleasure in it at the time that they're doing it as well. They love insulting you, they love hurting you, they love lying to you, and they love getting a little feather in their cap and convictions, all right? That's the assumption that I have going in, that this is this person's actual intention with me, okay? Cop approaches me, okay, he's going to start lying, he's going to start intimidating, and he's going to try to find some made-up reason to arrest me. That's my knowledge of going into the situation. Then, how do I handle that? Okay, so if he's a liar, that means I have to tell the truth without telling any lies, and tell them in such a way that he's actually willing to believe them, unlike his general distrust of the general public that his training has forced upon him. So, do I tell him something very profound? Do I tell him something about his uniform that he doesn't know? By the way, officer, you see this black and white checker around your hat? Do you know what that means? And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, just take your hat off for a second and just look at that. Okay, have you ever been to a Freemason meeting? He's like, no. Well, what color? Well, I'll tell you something. The color of the floors in a Freemasonic lodge are black and white tiles, just like the checker on that cap there. It's a Freemasonic symbol. It symbolizes the control of both light and dark. All right? That's the belief structure. And so when you're walking around, you have this symbol on your head, you are the controller of all that is dark and all that is good at the same time. That's why you're capable of doing bad things to good people and not feeling bad about it yourself. That's the idea behind it. And he's like, whoa, my God. And it is, you can see these profound realizations in these guys' faces. You know, we were talking to one cop about how 9/11 was an inside job. Got him to take some DVDs, got him to take some flyers on camera, had a really good conversation with him. And it seems to me that they are real people, but just like all real people that aren't in the truth movement yet, they're not themselves yet. They haven't realized who they are.
They can still be Agent Smith.
Yeah.
They can still be taken over by the metaphorical concept of the movie The Matrix, Agent Smith coming into anyone at any time. The system can claim control over them and put them back into the sheeple mode where they simply defend non-truth.
Yeah. And that's basically it. You know, that's why I avoid, when I can, talking to cops. But if they approach you, you have no choice. You have to talk to them. You can't just ignore and walk away, because then they'll say, "Oh, you're not obeying my fascist rules. I'm going to arrest you for absolutely no reason, under no charges, and torture you until you give me your name and your name all in capital letters." You know, that kind of thing. It just antagonizes them to treat them like the scum that they are. So
again, they're wearing costumes. They're wearing a costume, and they don't realize it.
That's right.
So, and sometimes you have to talk at the costume, and other times you got to talk to the human behind the costume. And most scenarios, the police officers realize you're talking to the human, not the costume. And if you tell them that, I'm talking to you, the person, not the individual that's wearing this costume that is imbued rights from all of these other laws. And you can begin the educational process, whether it's through comedy, through truth, or whatever gets you into that.
What I said to one cop is, I'm about to talk to you now, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I wish peace and a peaceful interaction and a peaceful resolution for whatever we're about to talk about here. I will show you respect, and I will wish for you to return the favor, and we will conduct this conversation as gentlemen, completely honest, and without malice. Do you agree to these conditions? Who says no at that point? Nobody. All right, because they realize that I'm dealing with a really intelligent person suddenly. I can't just bust them and they won't know their rights and stuff. And then suddenly you've got their respect, and you can only teach people something if you have their respect already. All right, you try teaching somebody who doesn't respect you. You try to teach them anything. You try to teach them that water is wet. They won't listen to you. All right, and that's the thing. You got to let them know that either A1, you're somebody to be respected, who is going to respect them, or B2, convince them that you know more about who they are and what they do for a living than they do, and that you have respect for it, regardless. You know.
So true. So true words. I advise people to go back and listen to that, because there's so much truth when it comes to respect. The material that I put out, I get a tremendous amount of people that don't respect and don't even listen to the material, and will write pages and pages on blogs identifying me in one way, shape, or form, and never listening to the material.
Mm-hmm.
I got accused of being a Jesus impersonator, and I'm a person that no. And again and again and again, this comes up over and over, and you get the same thing. People who don't listen to you and simply judge, and then make extended reports about you based off of their judgment. That's no respect. When I speak to people, you can tell there's a layer of respect for there, and that layer of respect allows more and more of each individual's truth personality to come forward. And in that truth personality, we can actually create something together that doesn't create conflict, but creates knowledge and wisdom that's freely exchanged between each other.
Well, what you've actually done is actually just encapsulated the interview style of my show. You give respect to people. You don't second guess them. You're not harsh on them. You don't ask them, difficult questions. You don't be an interrupting dick. You know, just be cool, man, and show some frickin' respect. You're dealing with somebody who's lived their life completely separate to your life. You can't impose your rules or your ideology on them. The best you can hope for is to listen to their life story and hope like hell that you can learn something from their profound experiences, right? And the best part about it is that you get to share them with unlimited people. All right, that's why that's why very few, if any, of my videos on YouTube have Google AdWords on them, because if you've got Google AdWords, you have to put a copyright protection on something, to assert that it's your material, and then people can't use it without your permission. And I'm just like, nah. All my videos are basically downloadable for free. If you want to make a documentary and you're short on stock footage and you don't want to go back to that bloody 50-year-old, stock footage in the archives in a local library or something like that and spend days there getting crap that you can't be bothered with, or you don't feel like going out and interviewing umpteen hundred different people to make one point, when I've already done all those interviews, when I've already shot all those protests, when I've already put up all the raw footage, it's yours. Do with it what you will. Okay, this is one of the largest online protest and interview video archives ever. and I'm giving it all away. If people have that spur, I know that it doesn't happen very often. When you'll see somebody else's video and want to incorporate, just a chunk of it or something like that into your documentary. Don't ask for my permission, bro. Go do it, and then ask for my forgiveness afterwards.
There you go. That's like a man truly honoring respect of those future leaders who want to stay up and saying, here's the archive of what I've done. Create with it. That's his challenge to you out there. Who else can step forward and pick up a microphone and a GoPro and begin doing what needs to be done for this world? Showing that leadership means you have to have boots on your feet or sandals on your feet or no shoes whatsoever, no rubber between there, and you're walking out there with the rest of the people and are leading people. Whether it's because you're blonde with big boobs or you got long hair man and they're following, it doesn't matter. Whatever gets them into the street is cool. The 60s and the 70s protests would have never happened if it wasn't for the women. We all know that. So women, step up. Men, step up. How you choose to do that starts with respect and the zones of trust of the people that you begin working with. Because in those founding relationships is where the true friendships of truth come forward.
That's absolutely correct. And I found that I lose a lot of friends going from one side of society to the other. All right, whenever you move town, ladies and gentlemen, you go from one side of the city to the other, suddenly all your friends in your suburb and everything like that, not only do you not see them anymore, but you actually stop contacting them quite so much. And it's like that when you become a truther versus your old life. You're moving away from the intellectual prison and you're going into a field of freedom. And those who are still in the prison don't follow you out into the field to greener pastures. Sheep always follow the shepherd. I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't like the current shepherd that's leading all them sheep into the slaughterhouse, then become a shepherd yourself and lead them to greener pastures instead, because they will follow you.
Yep. As long as you got grass, they'll follow you.
Yeah, especially at a normal conference.
That's good. So we got a couple minutes left in the show. Let's poke some fun at the world here. Let's poke some fun at propaganda media. What do you think propaganda media is going to show us in the next month?
Same thing that it shows in the last month, I would assume, because I haven't watched it in the last month and I won't watch it in the next month. Our TV went digital, right? I mean, you need to buy like $100 decoder in order to have mainstream TV in your house, and I was like, it's just not worth it, bro. And it was like, and the other kind of mainstream media that I could have access to is my car stereo, which is broken, and it would cost me about $100 to fix so I could listen to mainstream media. It's just not worth it, bro. Turn off the mainstream media entirely. It's not freaking worth your time or your effort or anything like that. And you know what's interesting? As soon as you're no longer listening to the mainstream media at all, not only do you not know what's going on currently, but you're actually well more informed than the rest of the population who only get misinformation out of it. Like, I wasn't watching the news, and there was this car bomb or truck bomb that was about to go off in Times Square. Was it last year or something like that? And I come into the house, through the door, and my wife says, "Oh, Vinny, there was a truck bomb in Times Square that they caught." And I go, don't worry about it, baby. It's probably just the FBI. My cynicism talking there. And then about a day later, it came out that it was the FBI. So it doesn't matter what kind of news story or anything that comes out. You usually just assume the opposite of whatever it is. And if you're not even watching the news stories, you don't even need to assume the opposite. And you can just go to sources of information that aren't full of crap, that don't waste your frickin' time having to do the opposite of them in the first frickin' place.
Exactly. Well, we are near the end of the show. Vinny, why don't you give people your website and a way to get a hold of you? And this has been an absolutely fabulous show. I thoroughly enjoyed interviewing you. We're both in such similar scenarios with network-wise and where we're going, and I look forward to doing some more shows with you and exposing more and more truth this summer.
Well, actually, we expose more. I expose scumbaggery, not truth. People can determine what the truth is for themselves. They have to verify, they have to research, and they have to log on different sources and things of that nature. If you want to actually verify what real truth actually is, ladies and gentlemen, it's not actually easy. It's a hell of a lot of effort, come to think of it. However, exposing scumbaggery is quite fun. because it's easy, because it's frickin' everywhere, and as far as I'm concerned, it's the only form of gainful employment that I'll subject myself to. Mostly because it's a source of infinite work material, don't you think?
Absolutely.
So if you feel like everything's a bit too much, you don't really you want to listen to some truth, but you don't feel like getting turned into a fetal position about it, and you want to have a few cackles or something of that nature while you're having a joint and you're sitting there in the middle of the night like a conspiracy theorist in your mother's basement, you're not really feeling too happy, turn on the Vinny Eastwood Show. In fact, go through my archives, man. Go to youtube.com/Vincent Eastwood. youtube.com/Vincent Eastwood. Go to my YouTube channel. You can search nearly any name, any topic, anything you want on there. Chances are I've probably already done it. And if I haven't done it, then you can message me, preferably through Facebook. Again, Vincent Eastwood, facebook.com/Vincent.Eastwood, or just search Vinny Eastwood, Vinny with a Y, because it's the most important question. Eastwood doesn't go ahead, make my news. Incidentally, do you know what you call a cowboy who can't see very well?
What?
Squint Eastwood.
Squint Eastwood.
And then you can go to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. Again, Vinny with a Y, because it's the most important question. Eastwood doesn't go ahead, make my news. The VinnyEastwoodShow.com, and we publish up radio archives there, and we've got a couple of advertisers, sponsors, but primarily what I want to start pushing, and I don't know if any of your audience will do this, but I'd really appreciate it if any of them would. Go to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com and start up a regular subscription for $5 or $10 a month, or however much or little you can afford, just so that I have a form of regular income with which to base my work upon, so that I can continue to serve the public without spending about 50% of my time either begging for donations or freaking out about not having enough money to pay the rent that week. You know? It would be really, really nice, and I've relied on the support of the community because I support the community. All right, it is a symbiote circle. What happens to one will affect the other. No times are hard. I know you have to work hard for your slave job money, and that giving it to somebody else is sometimes a very difficult decision. But please don't donate to me under any circumstances if you haven't got your rent paid, your bills paid, and your kids fed. Other than that, all of my material is available for free, so you don't have to pay to listen to it. You don't have to pay to watch it. You can have as much of it as you want, and you can give something back if you feel that it's worth it. That's why we purchase products, ladies and gentlemen, because we see value in them, and we want that product.
Speaking about products, I wanted to ask you about the Blue Shield that you promote. What does that do for you?
I've unplugged it yesterday to plug in a computer in that jack point, and I got really, really angry and stressed, and my brain's kind of like going all crazy. And this happened the last time I unplugged it as well. Mm-hmm. What it does, I don't know if you know how tuning forks work, but if you ping one tuning fork, and then you ping another tuning fork, you put them together, the strongest tuning fork will actually tune the other tuning fork to its exact same frequency. All right? Don't allow many. Right? So that's what happens with the Blue Shield. It puts out a sub-audible frequency, like a ping, and what that does is it tunes all of the other frequencies that are in your home, whether that be from your wireless on your laptop, or from the electrics in the walls, or the stuff coming off of the televisions, light bulbs. All of it's putting off frequencies. None of them are good frequencies. They bathe you in radiation stuff, and studies have proven that even non-electrosensitive people, even if you don't notice that there's anything wrong, even if you don't notice, oh, I feel sick or anything like that, that your cells do get affected nonetheless in exactly the same way as electrosensitive people do. So what the Blue Shield does, it allows you to have a plug-in model that will give you a 15-meter sort of like bubble that would tune all the frequencies within that area to the, I think it's a 4.38 hertz, I think, for the natural Earth resonating frequency. So it's the most powerful frequency you know. That's why you tend to feel a lot better when you're standing barefoot on grass taking a piss on it, because it helps that frequency to travel up into your...
It's the grounding frequency. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So broadcasts a strong grounding frequency, cancels out all of the other stuff that your cells would normally interpret, and in so doing, you protect yourself from electromagnetic and EMF radiation. And it's so effective that as soon as I take it out, about 30 minutes later, I turn into a complete a-hole. Honestly, and I'm still feeling it kind of now, like this kind of raw, angry in my stomach, because I'm just getting irradiated right now. I've got the TV on behind me, I've got a computer in front of me, I've got the lights with the massive bowls behind that, and I don't have my Blue Shield plugged in. Never, ever feel like this when I have it in. Never. And so I'd recommend people, if you really do want to get yourself some of that stuff, go to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com and scroll down a little bit, and you'll find the little Blue Shield banner there. Check out some of the products and get one for yourself. And they're guaranteed to last. They've got good batteries in them. Some of them you can even buy a recharge pack for, and the rest of them, I like the plug-in models myself. They're a little bit more expensive than the portable designs, but they do your whole home, which is good because, you know,
for people with children, new children, look into this technology, research it.
Yeah, I fully would. Other than that, thank you very much, man. It's been a great show.
Thank you for coming on, Vinny. Thank you for sharing your story. And I have a feeling that this interview, whether they like it or not, doesn't matter. I had a blast, and I know that there's going to be people that look on your reflection, my reflection, and begin to understand that we're human beings. We are having our common moral codes. We're coming together and sharing different areas of wisdom, different areas of knowledge, on our perspective at a time when everybody's perspective makes a difference by being heard. Thanks a lot, everybody. This has been another episode of Adventures in Reality with your host, Andrew Bartzis. If you'd like to get a hold of me, go to galactichistorian.com. You can get a hold of me through the office number, or you can send an email. Anyways, thanks a lot, everybody, and it's an end to another show. Look forward to our next wonderful broadcast. Thanks a lot, everyone.